Welcome to the 40 Finance channel, everybody. My name's Jeff Beers. Today we're going to look at Square stock about 2 weeks in advance of their Q1 earnings call on February 23rd, and ultimately make a call on should you buy into Square stock now or add to your position, or should you take your chances and wait until earnings pass. I recently bought into Square stock at the end of 2020 here into the first part of 2021, but I haven't gotten my position to the size that I'm really looking for the long term. So I'll go through some of the headlines that I'm seeing, what I think it means, and how I'm navigating opportunities to buy into Square stock to build up the final piece of my position with them. Reminder, as always, that my stock picks and projections are just my opinion for your entertainment. Please make sure you do your own research before investing in any stock. And if you like stock market analysis like this and other personal finance videos, please subscribe to the 40 Finance channel. Give this video a like. Thank you to everyone who has supported the channel so far. All right, whenever I do these stock analysis videos, I always do a good news, bad news segue to kick things off. And I'm going to start with the bad news with Square. And frankly, it's pretty simple. They've got a lot of things going for them. They've got a lot of momentum in the stock market. They've got a lot of positive headlines right now, which we'll dig into here in a minute. But the bottom line is the valuation for Square is trading at a very high multiple. So as an investor who also appreciates fundamentals as much as growth, it can be a tricky time to try to pick off some Square stock, even though you think you're going to hold for a long time, which I plan to do. I also know that if I can get in at a good entry point, then I won't lose my shirt in the first couple weeks of owning the stock if it were to take a major drawdown. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is you could get in at a high price and manage your cost basis down. But I've started my position at Square at a cost basis now of $214. I've got about 15 shares. The give or take goal is to hit between 30 and 50 shares depending on the opportunity. And I'd like to escalate through that and close what I'm going to buy out, ideally before summer at the bare minimum. And the sooner the better, because this is a stock with a lot of tailwinds behind it. All right, so let's just take a quick look at the fundamentals so you can see what I mean. This is a one-year chart. Pre-pandemic, you were at $80. And now, as we head into February 8th, you're at $250. So essentially in 1 year, this stock has 3x'd. And that's a great story, and there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of there. But usually you want to see the fundamentals kind of catch up with that 3x activity. But where things stand today with Square, you have a 66 cents EPS from the trailing 12 months. And that puts your P/E ratio today at 393 times their earnings per share. That's a pretty hefty valuation when you compare it to, say, PayPal, who's trading under 100 PE right now. And even some of the other big stocks like Amazon and Google are trading significantly cheaper than what you're paying for Square today. Now, I've clicked over here to the earnings estimate side of Yahoo. You have a year ago EPS of 80 cents. This year, when earnings are done, they're figuring that Square will settle in at about 76 cents a share. Don't forget that at least half of Square's revenue comes from their small business merchant network, and that obviously had some challenges during the pandemic year. Then looking ahead to next year, you've got about $1.15 on the estimates for 2021. Now, I did some math in the background, and if you take this $1.15 and let's just assume that they land there for 2021, that would put your PE at 225. And if they doubled this number in fiscal year 2020, that means their EPS would be $2.30, and that $2.30 would put your PE at 112. So generally speaking, if you compare Square to a PayPal or an Amazon or something like that, they are trading a couple years ahead of where their EPS sits today. So that, in my opinion, is the number one negative factor for Square as a stock right now, is just where the valuation's trading. So if you're gonna buy this stock at a PE of 400 with a projected forward PE of 225, you just need to know that at any given month or negative headline, you could easily see a 20% plus drop in the stock price. Now, on the bright side for Square, they have a host of headlines and news items that make you think that this stock definitely has higher to go. We just have to hope that their EPS goes up than what is projected for today. And I think that there's a decent chance of that. And I also know that with a smaller company like Square, you can have innovation, which would ultimately give them more revenue angles over the 12 to 24 months that I'm looking out to. So there is some X factors in there, and we'll get into that here while we look at the headlines. All right, I think the first most obvious positive sign for Square is the fact that PayPal just had a monster quarter, and they are expecting to have a very good 2021 as well. In fact, they came out and provided guidance on that. So this, in my opinion, is an apples to apples comparison, particularly on the Venmo versus Cash App side. Now, keep in mind that PayPal does have a much stronger e-commerce base with larger companies. However, these two stocks do seem to go up on similar days when there's more news about, a bankless society, peer-to-peer payments, anything like that. So let's take PayPal's success as a precursor to what may happen with Square when they report on February 23rd. All right, the next bit that has been a positive throughout the fourth quarter, and that is the Bitcoin price escalation that we've seen. And that took another boost here recently as Elon Musk and Tesla said that they invested in Bitcoin and will soon accept it for payment on a limited basis. Now, Square, of course, was ahead of the game, and they were offering crypto investing basically all throughout 2020. But most importantly, we know that they bought $50 million worth of Bitcoin in October, and that it sits on their balance sheet partly because they have to have that backup in order to allow for Bitcoin trading. I'm not 100% sure what the spread is from October to today in Bitcoin prices, but I do believe it has went up, and that just makes Square's company more valuable as a whole. And the demographic of Square has responded extremely well to Bitcoin offerings in the past. And this Tesla news, as well as the opportunity for investment on the Cash App, could lead to much bigger things down the road. All right, also of recent interest, you can see that Square attracts the greatest share of Robinhood defectors. This goes back to the GameStop fiasco where they paused trading on GameStop. And this research firm, Mizuho, or however you say that, says that Square gained the most when Robinhood restricted trading on heavily shorted stocks. Almost 40% of survey respondents who switched to other retail trading apps said they switched to Square's Cash App, exceeding users shifting to apps like Stash, Fidelity, or TD Ameritrade. Of those who switched to Cash App, about a third were net new users, and almost 75% expressed interest in other Square products such as Bitcoin and Cash Card. And perhaps a precursor to more inflow for Cash App is one survey conducted said 76% of traders said they plan to leave Robinhood. So if they did continue over to Cash App, that would be obviously a gain for Square. All right, so those are some recent headlines that I think bode well for Square, particularly on the Cash App side. The PayPal news alone shows that the cashless payments and e-commerce were very strong in Q4. And although Square does focus on small businesses such as hair salons, restaurants, things like that, we do know that some of that activity that was down significantly when America was in lockdown has expanded quite a bit since then. and just the nature of the holiday season, I don't think that they'll comp their merchant program Q4 from last year. But with all the growth they've had in Cash App, plus what should at least be increased activity on the merchant side, seems like a fair bet for Square. Now, some of you know the reason that I'm actually bullish for Q1 and Q2 for Square happens to be because of the upcoming stimulus and tax refund season that Square did very well with last year at this time. Now, we weren't sure that these programs would be comped, but it looks like they're going to be, and that should be a boon to Square. Okay, this screen comes from Square's Q1 shareholder letter a year ago that talks about the impact that the stimulus had on Cash App. You see the bar graph over here, and basically in April of 2020, when those stimulus payments came out, the direct deposit transactions of Square, which is inflows of money coming into Cash App, went up dramatically. And here is their look back at that in April, and don't forget this is 2020. We published a microsite and FAQs to help eligible Cash App customers understand the stimulus programs and how to easily receive funds using direct deposit, which coincided with Cash App's rise into the top 10 overall rankings in the US App Store. We also worked with partner banks to expand direct deposit eligibility from 3 million customers in February to 14 million customers ahead of the IRS's second portal release on April 15th. Scrolling down a little bit and talking about tax refunds. Tax refunds help contribute to Cash App's momentum. Over 80 million US taxpayers received tax refunds on their 2019 returns, with an average payout of $2,800. A large share of these tax returns are distributed in late February and early March, and these refunds drove a corresponding seasonal uplift in Cash App engagement and adoption. With strong growth in peer-to-peer volumes, Cash Card spend, stored funds, and direct deposit volumes. So if you're reading that report back when it was published in May or so of last year, you would say to yourself, well, that's great news, but that's kind of a one-time event, right? We don't get stimulus payments every day. So they did a good job of taking advantage of the opportunity and driving new users. And that's obviously built momentum all the way up to today. But now what we find out is instead of a negative comp in that particular situation, we have new stimulus checks rolling out. Some of those have already landed, and Joe Biden and his team are proposing even more, and that includes thousands of dollars projected to go out in summertime for parents of young children if everything gets approved. On top of that, we have a delayed tax refund season, which won't start until about February 12th this year, and that will go later in the year. So while Square may struggle a little bit with comps in January, we're going to see that tax season built upon this year. So if you had X amount of users last year who did direct deposit and tax refunds for Square, you're going to add to that momentum. Ideally, all those people come back again, and you add on top of it as word spreads that Cash App can be used to facilitate payments both from the stimulus and tax refunds. So all in all, I love the setup for Square in Q1 and probably into Q2 as things bleed over. All right, let's take a quick look at tip ranks like we always do to see where the best performing analysts are projecting Square. We look over here for the freshest dates of new opinions coming in. 25 days ago, you had a couple holds, but here recently, we've got a couple buys come in, this one at the $260 mark, and most notably $300 just 7 days ago. Ironically, that comes from the Mizuho Securities firm, which did the survey of users from Robinhood who were defecting into other apps. All right, so what to think about Square today when it's trading at $260? Well, like I said in the beginning, there's no way around it. This stock is trading at a high level of valuation no matter what metric you look at. So if you're going to get in at $260, I would just say plan to hold for, multiple years if you're going to wait for the EPS to catch up with the valuation. On the flip side, anytime a stock runs up like this, it has a better than not chance of having a volatile day or two in the future. That's where I'm going to be looking to add to my shares. I don't know if it'll go all the way back down to 214 where it was, but all you need is a little Bitcoin volatility as well as perhaps some weakness in their Q4 earnings report. And that could bring your stock price down closer to 214, in which case I would be in to finish building my position. All in all, I would say that at $260, you can take your chances and try to get through the Square's earnings report because the news is simply so good right now. I'm just not sure what fuel they can add to the fire. But pick your spots, and from a long-term perspective, getting in these fintech stocks now here in 2021, particularly before the world gets back to normal, so to speak, I think it's a really good time. With both PayPal and Square, you get the top two peer-to-peer apps out there with Cash App and Venmo. This really is turning out to be the future of how money is processed, particularly for the unbanked demographic, which we know is so large. So keep your eye on this stock and look for a good place to get in. And if you're already in, congratulations. It's been a heck of a run, and it looks like there's more left to it. All right, guys, those are my thoughts on Square heading into their earnings report. Let me know what you think in the comments. See you on the next video.